You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. In today's episode, we're discussing the beliefs underneath the work, rewiring your brain for joy, self-trust, and real success. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Okay, I am so happy that you're spending a little bit of time with me here today. And I just want to give you a little bit of background. Today's episode came from something that happened to me last week that honestly caught me a little off guard. I had the privilege of being coached live by my own coach, and the session lasted about 15 minutes. But by the end of it, I was exhausted. Honestly, it would have felt easier to work 15 hours than to sit in that level of honest reflection for the 15 minutes. And that is exactly the point, because the kind of work that we're going to talk about today, the work of examining our thinking and our beliefs, that is often some of the hardest work that we do. And it's much harder than just simply always doing more, being busy. And many high performers are very good at taking action. We know how to show up, we know how to produce, we know how to work. Just tell me what to do. But we don't always pause long enough to examine what is driving the action. And that's what this conversation is about today. The beliefs underneath the work, the difference between conscious and unconscious thinking, and the role metacognition, which simply means thinking about our thinking, plays in all of it. And how we can actually rewire our brains when we decide a belief no longer serves the life that we want to create. So let me tell you what happened. During the session, I made what seemed to be just a casual comment. I said something along the lines of, I don't think I would want a 7-figure coaching business if that meant only working 10 hours a week. And listen, at first glance, it sounds just like a preference, right? Honestly, I really like working, so I just thought I was kind of telling her like it was. Many high performers do enjoy working. We like the creating, the contributing, and the building of the new things. But my coach stopped and just said, super curious. And she asked me to go a little bit deeper, which I'm always then a little bit nervous, right? Because sometimes the things that we say casually reveal something that is sitting just below the surface of our awareness. And that is exactly what happened. And as we started exploring that statement, we uncovered a belief that I have had for a long time. And I've talked about it here many times. And it's a belief that I think a lot of us learn early in life, that hard work equals worth. Now, to be clear, hard work itself is not the problem. Hard work can build incredible things, but the real question is, what belief is fueling the work? And then when we kept going a little bit deeper, something surfaced that surprised me, because it's a story that I thought I have already done so much work around through the years. It's the story that I obviously subconsciously keep thinking around not becoming a mom. And somewhere along the way, it's just that quiet belief, right? And it formed that said, if I work hard enough, if I achieve enough, if I help enough people, then maybe I'll be worthy enough. And that's where coaching can be incredibly powerful, because once a belief like that becomes visible, I guess in my case, again and again and again, you just can't unsee it. And here's the fascinating part. Most of us believe we're making decisions consciously. But neuroscience tells us something very different. Researchers estimate that between 90 and 95% of our thinking is unconscious, meaning that most of our behaviors are driven by patterns our brain learned years ago. And our brain, remember, is designed to conserve energy. So it creates mental shortcuts. And these shortcuts allow us to move through life quickly without having to consciously evaluate every single decision that we make. But the downside is that many of the shortcuts were formed when we were very young, through family beliefs, maybe through culture, through experiences that we had as children. And unless we pause to examine them, those beliefs continue running just enough in the background to create the lives that we're living. And this is where something incredibly powerful can come into play. The concept that I mentioned early in the episode, metacognition, it simply means thinking about our thinking. And it's the ability to step outside of our thoughts and observe them. Instead of being inside the thought, thinking it's just the way it is, we become the observer of the thought. And the moment we do that, something important happens. We create space. And inside that space, we gain something incredibly powerful: choice. We can ask questions like, is this belief actually true? Is it helpful? Is it still serving the life that I want to create now? And once a thought becomes visible, we are no longer controlled by it in the same way. And now this is where neuroscience gets really exciting. Our brains are capable of something called neuroplasticity, which simply means the brain can rewire itself. New neural pathways can be created throughout our entire lives. We are never too old. But here's something important. We don't rewire our brains through massive overnight change. We rewire our brains through small, repeated thoughts and actions over time. Think about it like carving a trail through a forest, let's say. And the first time you walk through, it's barely visible, right? But as you continue to walk that same path every day, eventually a clear trail forms. And that's what happens with neural pathways in our brain. We have to keep repeating the new thoughts and beliefs that we want to think on purpose. And another part of the brain that plays a role in this is something that I've talked about many times, the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. And this acts like the filter for your brain. So your brain is constantly receiving millions of pieces of information, but it can't process all of it. So the RAS filters information based on what your brain believes is important. And if you've ever bought a new car and suddenly you start seeing the same car everywhere, that is your RAS at work. The car has always been there, but once your brain decided it mattered, you started noticing it. And the same thing happens with beliefs. When we begin practicing a new belief, the RAS starts looking for evidence to support it. Now, here's where I want to be really clear. This doesn't mean repeating affirmations that you don't believe. That sometimes feels like toxic positivity. Instead, belief change often comes through something much, much simpler. We move from, let's say, thought A to not thought A. It's just one step away from the belief that you've been holding on to. So it's not coming from A and going to Z. It's just a small shift. So for example, if the original belief is, my worth comes from working hard, the new belief might not immediately become, my worth is inherent and effortless. You see, it seems like a bit of a leap, right? But something that you might be able to start to embrace is something as simple as, maybe my worth isn't only tied to work, or there might be other ways to measure value in my life. And that small shift, that creates the space. And over time, as we practice new thoughts and gather evidence, the brain begins forming the new pathways. And this is where the idea of the compound effect becomes so powerful. Small shifts repeated consistently over time creates enormous change. Darren Hardy, I've talked about this author many times, specifically in relation to the compound effect. I highly recommend you can check him out on YouTube. He has a book, really goes into this concept. One small belief shift practiced every day, that one moment of awareness each morning, the one decision to pause and question a thought, those small moments compound. And over time, they create entirely new identities. And speaking of the RAS, it's funny enough, the morning after this coaching, I did a pink ride with Robin from Peloton, one of my favorites. And if you've ever taken a ride with Robin, she always has a way of delivering different messages that land exactly when you need them. And during the ride, she was saying so many of the things that my coach had just talked about. And she also talked about using joy as a metric in our lives. Listen, salespeople, we love metrics, right? How about if we start using joy as a metric? Not productivity, not achievement, not how much we got done, joy. And I have to say, that really landed. If part of my identity has been built around proving worth through effort, then maybe part of my next chapter is learning how to measure life differently. Not abandoning ambition and not abandoning work, but expanding the metrics, allowing joy to count too, take a minute and think about that for you. Expanding the metric, allowing joy to count too. And another thing that Robin said during this ride that was so important for all of us to hear: forgive yourself. And I think this is such an important part of growth because when we discover old beliefs still living in our minds, it's so easy to judge ourselves. I know for myself, I'm like, I've already done so much work around this. But growth is layered. We evolve, we uncover new layers, we grow again. And each time our consciousness expands a little more and a little more and a little more. And that's where the magic is. So as you move through your week, I want to invite you to reflect on a few questions. What belief might be quietly driving the way you work right now? Where might you be measuring your worth through effort? And what might change if joy became one of your success metrics? Sometimes awareness is the beginning of everything. And listen, the better it gets, the better it gets. Okay, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need the reminder as well. And remember, you don't have to push harder to evolve. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply become aware of what you are thinking. Because once you see it, you can choose something new. And that's where your next chapter begins. Thank you so much for being here. Let's meet back next week. But for now, lead your life with intention. Make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.